Hello friends, thank you for visiting the Technology channel. We can't move on with the euphoria of the WWDC event on June 6, 2020. We have been given many innovations from Apple, from the launch of iOS 16, smart home, security, and the launch of the new macOS Ventura. But the most interesting thing is the presence of the M2 chip as the successor to the second generation of Apple custom silicon. So what is interesting about this chip and what potential it can do, we will try to review it. Like when the M1 was introduced, the M2 first introduced through the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, bringing the breakthrough in the desktop class performance but in the size of the laptop. The most surprising thing is the power efficiency over the M1. Only 15 watts of power consumption has covered the CPU, GPU, memory, and other die on the chip. So then the M2 comes with a similar power efficiency but has more performance than the M1. Compared to the M1, M2 still carries 8 CPU cores. And we think for the base version M2, the 8-core CPU is still powerful enough to compete with competitors even when compared with the latest generation 35W TDP processor. But it seems that the 8 cores are not like M1's. Apple enhanced the memory speed, which is almost 2 times bigger than the M1, which previously ranged from the 16GB to 100GB per second. Increasing memory bandwidth makes the M2 confident when only give 8 CPU core because Apple claims an increase 18%. The interesting is that Apple uses 5nm fabrication, so they call it the second generation 5nm. Of course, this is not a problem if the fabrication used is still the same as a predecessor, because 5nm is already very small and its competitors still struggle in 6nm and 7nm. Although some mobile SoCs such as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 are predicted to use 4nm fabrication, and Apple is still leading the fabrication used for the laptop processor. As for the size of unified memory, the M2 given expansion of up to 24GB LPDDR5. Of course, the 24GB is the top tier version. As for the base version, the size of the RAM is still unknown, maybe start from the 8GB, 16GB, or 24GB. But if 8GB is not big enough. To compare with competitors, Apple compared the Intel Core i7-1255U, which has 2 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores, and 96 execution unit, of Intel Iris Xe. The result is the M2 is still superior even though the 1255U is running with 30 watts of power. However, M2 lost to 1260p, which has 4 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. But it should be noted that the 1260p must push and the power on up to 50 watts to outperform the M2, so it can only beat M2 when 1260p is running at 50 watts. And the conclusion, the result, of course, the efficiency of the M2 is very impressive. M2 is equipped with an additional 2 GPU cores in the GPU section to become 10 GPU cores, where GPU performance in the integrated graphics is very dependent on the existing in-memory bandwidth. Although only added 2 cores, it will certainly be quite noticeable if combined with the increase in memory bandwidth. Apple recorded 35 increase in GPU performance from the M1 chip. Even the most interesting is the performance of the GPU. M2 is 2 times more powerful than the 96 execution unit in the 1255U. At least, that's what Apple says. Well, we don't know in what scenario the GPU is being tested. However, from the illustration above, we can see that the performance of the GPU M2 can be considered 2x more powerful than the Intel Iris Xe 96 execution unit. So from here, we can have an idea that the 10-core CPU M2 should be equivalent to dedicated graphics with 4GB VRAM like NVIDIA GTX 1050 or GTX 1650. But this is just speculation. Next, we move on the neural engine enhancement. In short, this neural engine is the die inside the Apple Silicon M2 for the artificial intelligence acceleration, as it has to do with simulation for video analysis, voice recognition, and image processing. Many modern applications rely on machine learning for everyday tasks. So the neural engine in the M2 chip will play a very important role. So it will work together with the CPU and GPU to accelerate when performing tasks related to the certain simulation. No less interesting, the M2 also added a new media engine. The media engine will work if it has anything to do with the video encoding, and decoding, but not all video codecs are supported. Apple writes that the supported codecs are H264, HAVC, and ProRes. Thus, the increase in the playback when editing video will be very pronounced, especially since Apple also embeds the ProRes engine. The media engine is very important for video editors because it helps accelerate playback or render, and the media engine will help the work of the CPU and GPU to perform tasks related to encoding and decoding video. The system can run multiple streams of 4K video and 8K video with the new media engine. So it means that we can play back some 4K video footage in video editing software like Final Cut Pro without any problems. Because even systems that use M1 can stream 4K footage in video editing. It even claims to be able to stream 8K video, but it seems this will need to wait for a more competent reviewer. As a evidence, Apple also gives a chart showing a 38% increase in video editing performance compared to the M1. Of course, this is not a small percentage. That 38% increase on performance is a huge improvement. This is especially compared to the 2019 MacBook Air, which uses Intel Core i5 Gen 8 and USD 617. The increase can be up to 15 times in video editing, but of course it can make us wonder the increase can go that far for the size of a MacBook Air. Then like the M1, M2 was first embedded in the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. The MacBook Land-Up will be an interesting option if used for everyday use or daily basis, especially content creation, and we will only know after testing the real workload on some frequently used software. However, there is an increase the number of GPU cores, but also the additional of neural engine, media engine, and ProRes engine. As a result, Apple was forced to increase the chip surface area to accommodate all of these upgrades. But despite the increase in the chip area, the M2 still has the same power efficiency as the M1. And according to the claim, the new MacBook Air 2022 can last for 18 hours for video playback, so it will be a complete package MacBook Air can provide to its users. The princess of the M2 and the MacBook lineup is waiting for many people. Only with 13-inch MacBook Air, we can edit 4K footage. Well, for content creators who need an editing engine but are practical, MacBook Air can be a good alternative. Maybe for content creators who don't have too much workflow to edit and want to be able to edit from anywhere, MacBook Air and MacBook Pro powered by M2 can be the answer. Maybe that's all, a short review from M2. Hopefully it's useful, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Fatoni. Thank you and see you soon.